numbers: white, middle-aged men.
I was gonna kill myself. I just said, dude, you're just a flunky in the machine and it's time to get the hell out.
The largely white state of Montana has the highest suicide rate in America, at double the national average.
Get busy!
I want to try and understand just why so many middle-aged white men are taking their own lives and what the impact of that is here.
There was another gun there, and I thought, can I catch up? How fast does a soul travel? Can I please catch up and be with him?
I've come to Flathead Lake in western Montana, where kids are gathering for a summer camp. But they're not here just for a holiday. This is a camp for grieving children.
Nice to meet you, finally. Oh, how are you doing?
Tina Barrett is the director of the Tamarack Grief Resource Centre, which runs the 4-day event.
It's nice to meet you.
Kids come to this camp honoring different types of losses. The most common type of loss is suicide at our camp.
The most common?
Yes.
So what are the numbers there? 'Cause how many people are coming to the camp
We'll have
this year?
50 campers here,
Okay.
and 18 are grieving a death of a family member by suicide.
That's my Snapchat is yesterday. I know. I'm so glad to see you guys.
This is the third time that Jenny Laboon has brought her daughters Abby and...
Oh, how are you doing?
Tina Barrett is the director of the Tamarack Grief Resource Centre, which runs the 4-day event.
It's nice to meet you.
Kids come to this camp honoring different types of losses. The most common type of loss is suicide at our camp.
The most common?
Yes.
So what are the numbers there? 'Cause how many people are coming to the camp
We'll have
this year?
50 campers here,
Okay.
and 18 are grieving a death of a family member by suicide.
That's my Snapchat is yesterday. I know. I'm so glad to see you guys.
This is the third time that Jenny Laboon has brought her daughters Abby and Lily to stay here, and there's a reason why. People who lose someone to suicide are 3 times more likely to attempt it themselves.
So tell me what's going on here. What are you making?
We call them I think it's flags of remembrance.
And whose one is this?
Lily's.
It's yours, Lily. Nice. Talk me through it. What have you got in here?
Okay, so I love fishing. This is a fishing boat.
And who's Rick?
Our dad.
That's your dad. Yeah. Whenever I was 11, he committed suicide. So I come here and I process everything here.
So it's kind of like a place where you can sort of focus.
Yeah, it's a place where everybody understands what you're going through. You don't have to explain it. They just kind of know in their own way.
There's a lot of them that say dad.
What do you say to the girls when you're saying goodbye?
Be strong the way I know that you are. I love you. I'm here. Connect with everyone and heal.
White middle-aged men have the fastest growing suicide rate in the US. I want to get behind the statistics and find out more about one of these men. After Rick's death in Texas in 2014, Jenny came to Montana to build a new life. She remarried, and now there's a little baby brother for Lily and Abby.
What was he like when you met him?
Well, he was teaching in the same high school that I was teaching. And we started having coffee and writing letters to one another, so we fell in love with letters. And to me, I think part of the reason I was so attracted to him because he was this really strong, powerful man, you know? But he was always a little emotionally standoffish.
Before they met, Rick had been in the army. He joined straight out of high school and within months was deployed to a frontline hospital during the First Gulf War. He returned to build a life which looked happy and successful, but under the surface, Rick was struggling.
I came home and I noticed he was off. I reassured him, I held him, and I'm so glad I did. The next morning, he dropped Lily off at school, and later Lily would tell me that he looked at her with really sad eyes and then walked away from her. So that's hard. He went back to the house. He called the sheriff and said, this is what I'm about to do, and walked out the door, took the gun with him, and took his own life. He sent me a text, said, I love you so very much. And I know by the time of death that he sent me that text is the very last thing that he did.
I came to Missoula's biggest event, the county fair, to try to understand the pressures that men are facing here.
First number is B4. B4.
Do you think it's getting harder for men?
It's getting harder to make the money, to provide for your family.
What does it mean as a man if you're not able to provide for that family?
It just feels like I failed. I failed my wife, I failed my kid.
Give these guys a big round of applause.
Do guys talk to each other about their problems?
No.
No?
In general, no.
No? Okay.
At least none of the guys that I know. I love animals.
I met up with Mayor John Engen, who was born and raised in the county.
Today, Missoula, Montana is much different from it was when I was born in 1964. We manufactured and depended on the timber industry. That industry was largely a man's world. It's truck driving, it's logging, it's equipment operation. If you're a person of my generation, much of your identity is wrapped up in what you do. What's the first thing you ask a stranger in a social situation? What do you do?
What do you do? Yeah.
So for a very long time, the answer might have been, I'm a logger, which meant you put in a solid day of work for a reasonable wage.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you provided for your family, you've created a product. When I ask people what they do in Missoula, the answers are far more complex than they used to be. I'm between jobs. I don't do anything right now. But this is what I was. This is what I was, right? And in a world where you grow up with that label, and that label is important, and suddenly somebody tears the tag off, who are you?
But this isn't just a Rust Belt town in decline. Missoula's economy is thriving. But the old jobs are disappearing, and many white working-class men are feeling left behind.
The folks you see here today, a lot of them are going to be from places where what was the traditional Western lifestyle is still very much alive to them. That sense of self-sufficiency, and that you ought not rely on really anybody but yourself. And as boys were taught from a very young age, man up, toughen up, you don't cry. Well, when problems compile to a point that you can't shake it off, and there's no way in hell that you're going to have a conversation with another adult human being about how miserable you are, your options start to narrow considerably.
It's hard not to see a connection between the distress felt by so many of these men and the challenges of adjusting to a changing world.
White guys have had it pretty good for a long time, but some of the edges are being nipped at. If I'm not the boss, who am I? If my boss is a woman, what does that mean for me? If my boss is a Muslim woman, what does that mean for me? That's not the way I grew up. None of that was the way it was, right?
Are brought to St. Patrick's Hospital, which is coming under increasing pressure.
Hey, it's Brooks.
Brooks Bear is a mental health professional here.
You're such a busy man.
You know, that's just the way this job goes. It's just a lot of chaos.
So you work a straight through 48-hour shift?
Yeah, I'm covering the emergency department for a 48-hour stretch.
And how many people would you see in your shift?
20 is probably average. So if I see 20 people in 48 hours, 12, 13, or 14-ish are going to be suicidal.
And what are you seeing? Is it getting worse?
Oh, it's getting, I think, much worse. Just in the time I've been working in this hospital, I think our numbers are coming up 20 or 30% per year.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, noticeable.
But despite the growing need, this year Montana has seen huge cuts to its mental health budget.
I think the mental health cuts are having a pretty big impact. If there were stronger outpatient services, probably 30% of what I'm seeing lately I wouldn't see because they have nowhere else to turn. Yeah. This place is going to get busy. It's going to go wild for hours. I won't be too long.
Across America, many men turn to substances to try to cope with their distress. In Montana, those who go on to end their life are twice as likely as other Americans to have alcohol in their system. A few hours later, I caught up with Brooks to talk more about this.
We do love alcohol here. You throw alcohol at any suicidal individual and you've exponentially increased the risk. Literally, loneliness and alcohol. Honestly, I just talked to so many men who just talk about this crushing loneliness. Loneliness literally hurts. The brain reads loneliness like physical pain. All they know is, to them, this pain is unbearable.
And along with alcohol and loneliness, there's another factor. Montana has the fastest growing income inequality in the country, and it's in the poorest communities that more and more people are taking their lives.
The more disparity between the haves and the have-nots, the higher the suicide rate. If you're rubbing shoulders, like in Montana you do, if you're rubbing shoulders with the wealthy and you are not wealthy, it makes us white middle-aged males feel inadequate, and we're a burden on people and we're not producing, and the more highlighted it is that I'm a have-not, the more I want to end my life.
Since arriving in Montana, I've wanted to talk to one of these white middle-aged men who have tried to take their own lives. But there's a lot of stigma around suicide, and it's hard to get anyone to talk. Then right at the end of my visit, I get a call.
As soon as I left work, I was gonna kill myself. I just said, dude, you've got nothing to show for all your efforts. You're just a flunky in the machine, and it's time to get the hell out.
Go.
Russell is 63 and has lived in his family home for the last 40 years. He's suffered with depression for decades. A few years ago, he was determined to take his own life.
I just ran in here and I took the shotgun out, and then I looked at the dog and said, what am I going to do with the dog? And then I started putting another shell in the shotgun, because I thought I'd have to shoot her too. And she gave me this look that just said, what's going on? And I just said, I can't do this. I can't do this.
What was going on in your life, Russell, that made you feel like you wanted to take your life?
I mean, at the time I was alone.
Alone?
It was just me living here and one dog. And loneliness can be kind of a terrible taskmaster. This is a tough country to live in. I mean, if you're not a competitive person, and I'm not, it's not easy. The Americans like a winner. They don't like people who aren't winners. All our lives we're given this false notion of American superiority, that we're supposed to be superhuman. I'm Superman. I'm Clark Kent. I'll rip off my shirt and I'm going to have a cape and an S plastered on my chest and I'm going to save the free world. And of course we aren't going to. Most of us are just people like me. I think that a lot of people in Montana they reach that same level of panic because they don't make enough money. There's a level of terror among people